Okay, everybody, a big topic of discussion obviously lately happens to be the use of forward-facing sonar, also known as live scope to some folks out there too, on the national tournament series. And I myself have been out with quite a few crappie guides out there, and I understand the importance of it and dealing with it. But now it's affecting the national bass tournament trails here. And one in particular, just this past week, the National Professional Fishing League announced some drastic, I'm going to call them drastic measures. So I thought instead of just me rambling on like so many of us are that have no vested interest in these leagues that are participating, I'm going to reach out to a local guy who I've known of now for years. I think in years, Ryan, and too many years now too, because you're getting a lot older the last time I saw you. So you actually fish, Ryan Satterfield here. You are a winner on the National Professional Fishing League.
Yes,
A
sir.
league that took some big steps this past week. But real quick, tell people, folks, where are you from and where did you fish in high school?
So my name is Ryan Satterfield. I'm from Genoa, Arkansas. In 2013, I graduated from Genoa, and that's also where I was a part of starting an high school fishing team.
And I
So
know, yeah, and I
go
know
ahead.
from meeting you back then and from what I do nowadays too, how important high school fishing, happens
Yes.
to be. Did you go immediately to the National Professional Fishing League, or what? How did you get there?
So a little bit of my testimony, I feel like I should share that. When I graduated high school, I got a job local in Texarkana, and I started fishing, traveling in the BFLs. I fished for a year, didn't have any success, so I kind of backed off, and tried to stay local, stay at home, somewhat close to drop my expenses and learn more about fishing, learn more about fish movement, and stuff like that. And then I would start traveling again. I feel like that helped me more than anything, and I'll get more into that here in a minute. But I started with the National Professional Fishing League. This is my third year, so I started in 2022
Mhm.
with those guys. That was their second year, and so that I didn't get in the first year. I told myself that I couldn't do it. I couldn't get the sponsor dollars, and I just didn't take a chance at it. And then I got to watch them fish on my home lake their first year on the sidelines. And during that week, I told myself if I ever get that opportunity again, I'm going to try to take that chance. And so that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So their slogan is, and I'm taking this off their website, the focus is to bring simplicity back to professional bass fishing. One lake, 126 anglers, 3 days of fishing with the heaviest combined 3 day weight winning. And I'm guessing almost in one way, with this decision that was made this past week, again, I guess they're basically trying to get it back again to that simplicity part of it because technology is a big thing. But let's talk a little bit about this here. So before we start addressing the announcement that came out, I want to ask you your perspective because you said learning about fish movement, and all these other kind of things. I would imagine that live scope has taught you a lot that maybe you didn't realize about certain things with fish. Because I know it's taught me a lot whenever, especially comes out when I go out crappie fishing and all. But I'm guessing though for you as well that live scope forward facing sonar taught you a lot as well.
Yes, it has taught me a ton. I think it's taught everybody a ton that has spent some time with it. Um, it's also taught me where I thought fish used to live, they don't live, especially on local lakes. And so yes, it has taught me a ton. One thing I do think that we're catching some of the fish that are resting and that are out there in open water. Those are the fish that are, I guess you could say, are a little easier to target, and we never could do that before live scope. And so,
What did that do? What has Live Scope done to tournament fishing? Because I see because every league's different. You have Bassmaster, you have MLF, you got MLF that has the series now that every fish counts and they're out there catching fish after fish after fish. But everybody's comment is they are fishing. I know they say they're not fishing, but they are fishing still. But it's like they're like all they got is their head glued to that screen and not looking up. And I want to say first of all, that's somebody's prerogative if they want to do that. That's
yep.
my view on that part there. Stop bashing it. You don't want to do it, don't do it. But my question of it is for you, what has LiveScope done for tournament fishing in your opinion? 'Cause. 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 '
course, this is my opinion.
Yeah,
A
I
couple
agree.
different
Fine.
takes on it. My first initial take on it is, so previous to live scope, we go fishing and we target feeding tables, whether that be a stump, a brush pile, a tall tree, whatever the case may be, a dock. That's where we normally would fish. That's so we would be catching the feeding fish. With live scope, you can look at the docks, you can look at the feeding tables, but also you can look at the open water fish that are out there resting, what I call resting. And those are the fish you can catch way easier with live scope. And for tournament fishing, first, the viewers, most people don't want to watch looking at a screen. They want to see the shallow water stuff, like, okay, we're going to go fish docks or we're going to go fish grass for 8 hours. They want to see the action. And you don't really get that on live scope. You get a guy looking down at a screen, a sonar minnow, and a drop shot. I mean, that's pretty well the complete. Now the fish catches have went way up, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of fish being caught. And with no sonar, those fish catches are going down. But that's not the point. The point is that kind of going back to the, I shouldn't say old school, but just regular bass fishing, what it kind of has always been.
I guess for a tournament trail, though, you have to have a level playing ground. You have to have it basically in saying, okay, you can use live scope forward facing sonar if you want to. But at the same time, though, we're probably finding out that that is helping out people catch bigger fish, sometimes targeting fish and bringing more fish. And well, you have a certain number you can bring in. So I'm guessing they got to come up with a plan and say, okay, we're either going to do this for everybody or not. I'm curious, out there on y'all's league, when you have more than 100 anglers out there, was everybody nowadays using forward-facing sonar? Or were there still some that weren't?
So there's definitely still some that aren't. And from my perspective, like for myself, I don't want to use it. Like I'm a strength is shallow water power fishing. And so that's what I typically try to do. Now for the last year and a half or so, most of the time all I've done is go live scope. Now it's not what I want to do, but it's what I have to do to try to keep up, because the fish catches have gone way up and the size of the fish have gone way up because everybody's learned how to use the live scope. You can't compete not using it anymore. And so whether you like to or not, if you want to try to get a paycheck, you've got to be using live scope.
So I guess it was a decision they had to make to go and say, okay, we gotta either everybody go all in, which you can't force everybody to go all in, I'm guessing, because that is an expense, or they may have the sponsorship available for it, or says, you know what, the easiest thing to do is let's bring everybody back a little bit and come back with it. Is that the take you got? I mean, were you involved in any discussions on this? Did they survey you guys? Did they ask you all your take on anything before they made this decision?
They did offer us a meeting. They did offer anybody to get up and talk to them. I don't know their standpoint of why they made the decision and what their reasonings were or their opinions. Um, I think that my biggest take on it, the guys that are at the top are going to stay at the top. The fish catches may go down, but the guys that put in the most effort and the most time on the water are still going to be at the top. It's not going to flip the whole field. What it's going to do is allow people to keep up and get a paycheck without forward facing sonar. Also, you're going to be able to get on the fixed TV app, watch the NPFL guys fish on the bank, fish on docks, fish on, you'll still have your 2D and you'll still have your Humminbird 360. So the guys will still be fishing offshore and stuff, but you'll see that the guys power fishing and your topwater bites, your frog bites, and all that. That's kind of what I like doing. But you'll get to see that on TV versus somebody just looking down at a screen.
Any word though? I'm curious. Are y'all guys actually allowed to use it in any practicing or not, or has that been made of an announcement?
I haven't looked into it that much. I don't think it'll be allowed in practice, but I'm not for sure on that.
Okay, yeah, I was curious. Are you concerned any at all the impact this could have on the league in the sense of the number of anglers participating, some maybe exiting and going elsewhere where they are able to do it, or even sponsorship dollars?
I don't know on sponsorship dollars on anglers, and this is just a guess. I don't know for sure, but my take on it would be there is going to be some guys leave, but there's going to be a whole lot of guys that come over, and they're going to be some of your old time anglers and even new guys that don't have the money to put in toward live scope. They're going to put it toward entry fees, and they're going to have the opportunity to come compete. And I fully believe that the NPFL will have a full field because of their decision.
Do you like the decision that was made overall? Because also 2 days later, Bassmaster came out with theirs, and they did not go that extreme, but they did go and set some guidelines. And some people are looking at them saying they don't like some things, and they're laughing at some of their stuff. But I guess my question of it is, do you like the fact that you all just went totally no, or at the same time did something like, maybe more like what Bassmaster did and put some limitations on them?
I think I don't. My personal opinion, I don't think you can limit it. I think you either got to have it or you don't. You don't have it because one transducer is all you need in order to use live scope. You don't need the 3 or 4 or 5 transducers that it was kind of going toward. That's not really necessary. I mean, one transducer is really efficient, and I think if you're going to limit it or get rid of it, you got to get rid of it. Um, just because, and I think I think there's a lot of people for it, a lot of people against it. There's not, I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer, but what I do like is that now you still have 3 professional trails and one of them doesn't have it and the other one still does. And so you have your, if you don't like it or do like it, go where you want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, go where you like to go and do it. Don't bash it if somebody uses
That's
it.
right.
Because I do believe that it is a useful piece of technology, and we advance as time goes along. But I think the thing of it is too is in the fishing industry, and especially on the national tournament trails, you still have a lot of old school anglers that are there, and even some that aren't old school, but they don't want to learn the technology. But then you have others that love it and have just absorb every bit of it that they can go and end up doing that. It's sort of like a NASCAR driver that if somebody follows NASCAR or not, and then you got the guys that grew up doing sim racing in the computer, and then all of a sudden they're a big success on the NASCAR track. That's
Yep.
because they started to understand. I do believe that it's a very, very useful tool. Like you
Yep.
said earlier, and we were talking about, we did not know sometimes how those fish act. Like you just said, you could be fishing certain stumps and trees, and there may not be a single fish there. You don't even actually know if you're throwing your bait in the exact right place there for it. But with live scope, we've been able to now understand that a little bit more with
Yep.
it. I think it does have a place with. I'm very interested to see though what happens. I'm curious. On y'all's trail, is it only the you fishing, or do you have a co-angler also?
So no, we don't have a co-angler.
Because I know
It's
that was
just
also
us.
that's also been an issue there because of live scopes being used in some series
Yes.
out there with co-anglers. That's hurt co-anglers, even though I think they could technically take their own like portable live scope or forward-facing sonar out there with them
Hmm.
to do that. But that's a lot more, I'm guessing, hassle also in order to do
Yes.
something like that. What
And
do you,
if it at the co-angler aspect, my take on that is it's very, I should say, I guess I could say unfair for the co-angler because boat positioning is completely different when it comes to a guy that has no forward-facing sonar, just going down the bank, or you're fishing a flat of grass or whatever. Like the co-angler has his own angles. When the guy's chasing a singled out fish out there in open water, the co-angler's fish catches are going to go way down.
Mhm. Mhm. I'm trying to pull up here real quick on some of the stuff here is that, as far as a lot of people chiming in with their different comments there that are on it. But you guys, one, like I said earlier too, with you is that uh, your tournament series, how long's your tournament series been around?
4 years.
Only it's a 4 year series there with it that's been around, so it's relatively new. Obviously, when you compare it, first of all, to
Yep.
the Bassmaster out there in BASS, and MLF's been around now for a few years, and a lot of that transitioned over from the FLW and got absorbed into that for it. But you guys, you don't cut small paychecks though. I mean, you've won it, with it. I mean, so people aren't familiar with it. I mean, what's that first prize check that you guys cut for each tournament?
$100,000.
Yeah, that's nothing to laugh at all. But where do you think this is going to go? What do you think is going to happen here with it? I mean, I know you want to be as optimistic as possible with it when the new season rolls around to see how it goes. But do you think this is going to be a thing that stays? Or, I mean, I guess they could bring it back in a year or two and doing that. What do you think the trend's going to be? Because I think eventually technology is probably going to win out and it's going to come back. At least that's what my thought is. They're on it.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
I agree. Technology is a big thing, and it's going to be hard to slow it down. There is no slowing it down. One thing I do like that the NPFL did, I agree. I 100% support that the decision they made, um, because there's more than one trail. It offers a platform, whether you don't want live scope or you do, you have that option, like I said. But also, I think that you're going to have, um, as far as next year in the future, the viewership is going to go way up because everybody wants to watch traditional bass fishing, and you're going to have some of the best guys in the industry that don't want live scope that are going to be in the field next year, and I think competition is going to be top notch, and viewership is as well because everybody's going to want to see.
I think you are right on some of that. Is that at the beginning of the season too? Is if people will remember to join it and follow it and all, they're going to be very
Yep.
interested to see,
Yep.
how things are like with it. I know there's going to be a lot of things, and I think there was an article that just got put out, talking a little bit about as far as trying to figure out, the number of fish caught with live scope versus the number of fish caught by the people who weren't using live scope and all. You really and truly, personal opinion, that's like doing a survey of 100 people and how something affected them. They ate a food or they did something like that because everybody's going to be different. That fish is
Yep.
going to be different and all that. So it's really tough to compare some of that. But I am going to be interested. I hope at the end of the day, this was a great move for it.
Yep.
But I do think technology goes on. It's sort of like deer hunting. Is
Yep.
that, if I shoot with a compound bow, I got the recurve person going and saying, oh, that's not the way we deer hunt. Well, that's called technology. That's
Yep.
called hopefully a better shot. And then all of a sudden you got the person over here with the crossbow hunting, and it's like, oh, that's not doing that. And it's like, again, it's the higher percentage kill shot, shooting it further and doing things. It's
Yep.
technology. And I
Yeah,
think
and speaking on that, so my two perspectives to add to all this. One is I look at live scope like spotlighting deer.
yeah.
Those fish leave a feeding table and go out there and rest. They have no opportunity to rest anymore. Now, this is my opinion, because if you put the live scope on a boat and the right guy's using it, he can go catch most of the fish he throws at. Now, that's not me. I've spent a lot of time using live scope. I love it, but I'm not the best at it. Some of those guys are really good at it and they can nearly catch every fish. Also, when it comes to high school fishing, some of the high school kids are steering away from the bass fishing industry because technology has gone so far and they think it's so expensive to get into. And, I think it's, if I can do it, anybody can do it. But I love that there's a league now that you don't have to have the best boat in the world, that money can buy, and you don't have to have all this technology. We can go back to just regular fishing.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I do think that sometimes it's a useful tool to be able to have, because I bet, and I'm betting, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, because of your experience with using live scope, it probably changed up the way you fish without live scope
That's
because you
it.
were able to learn a little bit more about it though.
Yep, for sure.
I think it's like taking a test. You can study and study, but when it comes time for the test, you can't use all the studying tools anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe that's the simplest
Yep.
way to go and end up putting it there with it. And like I said, I have nobody, no dog in this fight or anything like that.
Yep.
I just get a chance to go out with a lot of fishing guides who've taught me a whole lot, and I look at the live scope aspect of it. But I've watched some fish without live scope, and two, even with bass fishing, I've been out with guides, and even people like Justin Cooper, who fishes on the MLF out of Toledo Bend. I've been out with guides in different places. A lot of the bass fish that I've been out with, they're not using their live scope. They just know the patterns already of the
Yep.
fish. Now, the crappie fishings, it's a little bit different there with it. But I also understand why some of those guides use it because it's a business. And if they're bringing somebody in, they want to put them on fish and send them home because they want a happy customer and they want them to be coming back, I think.
Yep, I agree. And also, like you talk about, like guides that, like if you have a successful trip, like you go with a guide that doesn't use live scope, well, he knows that lake enough to not need it. But at the tournament aspect, if you bring that tournament organization to that lake and they're allowing live scope, that guy cannot keep up with the live scope because it is such an efficient tool. He's going to have to change all of his ways and go live scope. And what I mean by that is you put your chart on, you extend your live scope out 120 foot, and you go trolling and you don't make a cast until you see the right fish, what size fish. I mean, that's how far it has went. And
Yeah.
if you're not doing that, you're not competing. And so it's, and it's just my opinion, but I've told several people this. When I took a break here at home to try to learn, I fished Lake of the Pines, Patman, and Millwood. I tried to learn them as much as I could. I fished every weekend, as all of that stuff that I learned, that I out daylight to dark, just the days that I spent out there just learning as much as I could on the front deck of the boat. You can put all that to the side when you bring out live scope. And that's my opinion. All of that stuff that I spent all those hours learning, it matters nothing to live scope. You just got to troll until you see the fish you want and you throw at it. And of course, that's my opinion, but I feel like that's where it has went to.
So obviously, at the end of this whole conversation, my take on it with you is that you are happy with this decision here because this is the way you want to fish. It
Correct.
doesn't sound like completely that you were like anti live scope with it, but you
Not
just
at
like the
all.
fact that maybe everybody's on the same playing field out there fishing the same style of fishing also.
Yep.
Yes.
And because it brings in a whole new aspect of, you have to read water, you have to worry about the weather, you have to worry about conditions of when I can fish this stump to get that bite. And I've had some success, this past year in October, we were at Lake Lanier. I finished fifth, and every fish I caught was on live scope, and I was 20 to 80 foot of water. I mean, so I've had some success with it, and I'm not completely against it. But I think for a tournament aspect, I think the NPFL did a good job.
Okay. Well, Ryan, on that part there, we will end this recorded part of our conversation. You gave us some very interesting perspective with it because this is what I wanted to do is get somebody that actually fishes on this tournament trail perspective instead of all of us others that are playing armchair quarterback sitting at home being
Yeah.
keyboard warriors out
Yeah.
there on social media.
Yeah.